Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to thank SteelOrbis for inviting me again to speak at this very prestigious conference again. I'm very happy to come, so that I strongly believe that even without my attendance, there will be no bad mouthing about China's steel industry. Today, I will give an update to the performance of the Chinese steel industry and also share with you from the perspective of China Iron Steel Association the outlook for the steel industry in China. So first of all, let's look at the steel production of today. Steel production growth is visibly slowing down compared with the months before and also the last 2 years. Crude steel production in September is 82.77 million tons, up 2.24%. It still grows, but the growth rate is 7 percentage points lower than that of August. For the aggregate steel production for January to September is 748 million tons, up 8.4% year-on-year, but which is still lower by 6.87 percentage points than that of January to August. Second, let us look at the steel export. The finished steel export continue to decrease, while export prices stay basically stable. The finished steel export in September is 5.33 million tons, down 10.42% year-on-year. The total finished steel export for January to September is 50.31 million tons, down 5% year-on-year. While the steel export price, there's very little change. For September, the price is only 1.26% down year-on-year, and the average export price for the first 9 months, there's only 0.73% increase. Let's also have a look at the steel import. The finished steel import dropped both in quantity and price. Although there's not too much change, but there's already complaints from our member companies about the inflow of low-price steel import from some countries. And as a association, we will watch carefully the price and volume evolution of imports, and we'll decide whether to take countermeasures in future. Then let's have a look at the steel demand growth. The steel demand growth is slowing down, but still at a very high level, which we feel this is we have to say thanks to the health growth of the Chinese economy. For example, infrastructure investments continue to accelerate, the real estate investments stay at a high level, and the industrial sectors, these seemingly run still generally smoothly. The apparent steel consumption for September is 78.65 million tons, up 3.37% year-on-year. But of course, it's lower than the last few months. And the apparent steel consumption for the first 9 months is 706 million tons, up 9.3%. Although the steel consumption growth is slowing down, the social and enterprise inventory is also decreasing, apparently, which implies that the domestic demand is still robust. For the first 9 months, China's crude steel production increase is 57.95 million tons, and the domestic consumption increase is 59.95 million tons. In other words, the crude steel production increase is all for domestic market demand. Let's have a look at the economical efficiency. First, let's have a look at the steel price. Steel price of 2019 is a little lower than last year, generally speaking, and we believe it will further weaken in the coming months before coming back, maybe some rebound in May to March, perhaps in the spring, when the construction activities will begin to pick up. Steel price, we have a China Steel Price Index. The CSPI index is 106.09 at the end of September. It's up 1.28% month on month, but down 12.78% year on year. For the first 3 quarters, the price index is 108.58, down 7.17 points, or 6.19% year on year. While the steel price is weakening, the major steelmaking raw materials price fell a little bit after the peak in July, but still at a very high level. For example, in 2019, the price of iron ore concentrate, imported iron ore, steel scrap, and steelmaking pig iron all increased and stay at a high level. Entering October, iron ore price continued to fall. The CIOPI, which is the China Iron Ore Price Index, on October 18th fell down to 319.29, down 5.44% over the end of September. But anyway, it's clear that the price is weakening. The raw materials price is quite strong. So the economical efficiency of the steel mills is very much squeezed. Sales profit rate of CISA steel producing members fell to 2.67% in September, down 5.38 percentage points year on year, and around 1% month on month. The aggregate sales profit rate for January to September is 4.67%, or about 3 percentage points lower year on year. This is a very brief introduction to the, maybe an update to the current situation of the China steel industry. Then I will use several slides to brief you also at the future of the Chinese steel industries, to tell you some megatrends or the major tasks that we are facing today. Echoing some points made by our peers, speakers in the morning, grain development is maybe the paramount task and the first priority for the Chinese steel industry. On September 7th, 2019, 15 Chinese steel enterprises signed a declaration on grain development, which we believe will be a new starting point for the Chinese steel industry to practice the grain development vision. According to the ultra-low emission standards, the limits for fine particles, SOx and NOx are the most stringent, not only for China in the history, but also for the whole world. If we cite an example, look at the centering head view for the fine particles, for SOx, for NOx. The ultra-low standard is like 10, 35, and 50 milligrams per cubic meter. If you look at the figure for Germany, it's 20, 500, and 400. So all the other developed countries is very similar. Everything is at a cost. To go for grain or meet the ultra-low emission standards is also at a very high cost. According to a survey to our member companies, the operational cost for the upgraded environmental protection facilities will be over 6% of the finished steel price of today. Also, for this upgrading also requires high capex investment. According to our rough estimation, will be over 200 billion yuan RMB for the whole industry. So the second task or the major mega trend for the Chinese steel industry is to further deepening supply-side structural reform to reinforce the achievements we have made in capacity reduction. So since 2016, China has successfully reduced more than 150 million tons of crude steel production capacity, fulfill the upper goal 2 years ahead of schedule. In future, so one task is to strictly prevent capacity increase. A new capacity can only be built on the premise of tidying out the existing ones. In the environmental sensitive areas such as Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei, the Yangtze River Delta, and the Pearl River Delta, the swap rate should be no lower than 1.25, and in other areas, no lower than 1. According to the capacity swap announcements published by concerned local governments, the newly building capacity is 9.9% less than the tidied out, so to secure a decremental swap. In future, the major task will be restructuring and upgrading to better meet the demand of the downstream steel-consuming sectors. This figure shows the very positive results in the last maybe 2 or 3 years in reducing steel capacity. According to World Steel Association, in 2015, the world average capacity utilization rate was 68.3%, when China's capacity utilization rate is around 70%. Since 2016, the China's capacity utilization rate returned swiftly from 70% to close 90% in 2018. The achievements of China in reducing steel capacity also benefited the world market. If you look at the graph on the lower down, right down graph, you can see the profit rate rise for the major steel-making companies in the world. ArcelorMittal, POSCO, Nippon Steel, DFE, they all reported quite a positive increase in profit rate. The third one may be that you will like this. We believe China's steel industry will still be mainly catering to the domestic demand in future. As proved by the apparent steel consumption figures of this year, for the first 9 months, as I mentioned in my previous slides, the steel consumption growth is more than the production growth. So if we want to analyze China's steel consumption, we should pay attention to the growth rates of GDP, fixed asset investments, and industrial added value. But we should pay more attention to the absolute increment volume. The decrease of steel consumption intensity will lead to a decrease of steel consumption. In the meantime, the increment of GDP, fixed asset investment, and industrial added value will bring about an increase of steel consumption. So by now, China's steel consumption increase is still larger than the decrease. Let's take like a fixed asset investment in the example. For the first 9 months, China's FEI is 46.12 trillion yuan, up 6.06 trillion yuan over the first 8 months. So despite of the drop in steel intensity, the overall steel consumption is still on the rise. We also believe there's still potential for steel consumption growth further in the coming years in China. The Chinese economy is running smoothly. So for the first 3 quarters, the GDP growth is 6.2%, which is lower than before, but is still among the highest in the world. If you look carefully into the details, the sectors, for the fixed asset investment driving steel consumption, still there's a growth. These high steel consuming areas, they drove the increase of concerned steel product consumption. For the first 8 months, 2019, the total production of these products reached 69 million tons, accounting for around 90% of the total finished steel increase. Steel for manufacturing industries remain stable. The products concerned reported a slight increase, 4% on average. In future, China's economy will remain stable for quite a long time, which will keep steel consumption stable and increase. You know, China is a vast country, it's a huge country, so there's a different development level and the urbanization process in different regions. There's also quite difference among different steel consuming sectors. Therefore, in certain areas and in certain sectors, steel consumption has not yet peaked. This is like an outlook for the future Chinese steel consumption. We call this that steel consumption is entering a plateau period. What we say plateau is different to the previous stage when we have continuous growth of the steel consumption and steel production. 2 weeks ago in Tokyo, we have a meeting for reducing excess capacity. Mr. Basson, Director General for World Steel, he used the word flattening for China. It means we will stay at a high level for a long time, but there will be fluctuations. We think that in the current 5 to 10 years period, the Chinese steel consumption will stay at a range of 850 to 900 million tons on average. The peak will be around 950 million tons. With this consumption and the current steel capacity, we believe the capacity utilization rate will be between 85 to 90%. So after the reduction of excess capacity, the overall steel supply and demand is basically balanced today, and we believe that it will remain balanced in China for many years to come in future. Fourthly, China will be more open, as announced by the President of China a few days ago in Shanghai. And the Chinese steel industry will be more integrated with the world's steel industries. Since the beginning of this year, the world steel industry has generally maintained a stable operation. However, due to uncertainties such as China-US trade friction and the sharp fluctuations in the price of raw materials, such as iron ore, the industry's recovery momentum has slowed down with increasing downward pressure. We have to notice the root cause of overcapacity is a decline in market demand due to economic recessions. In the meantime, trade protectionism has dragged down world economic growth and has damaged the hard-won recovery of the global steel industry. So therefore, we are ready, and we call on all the steel industries around the world to work together to encourage the development of the economy and expanding demand. We should also work together to fight trade protectionism. In the meantime, strengthen exchange and cooperation among the industries. Having said that, I have finished my presentation, but I will be here for the rest of the time, and I will be ready to take questions if you have. Thank you very much.